All right. Hey, good morning. It is Friday, February 21st. It's the Rise and Grind Morning Show. Glad you guys are all here with us today. We got a packed show this morning. Lots of Lions news and rumors. Something popped up last night that I'm having trouble with here, and we're going to talk about Aiden Hutchinson and this recent news and rumor about tampering with Myles Garrett. And, I did a little searching. When's the last time something like this happened to Lions? We're going to talk about that, too. But we've got a lot of information about recent break-ins attacking NFL and other prolific athletes around the country. The robbers were nabbed, so they should be off market now. But we'll talk about some Lions news and rumors. We're going to do that all when we get back here in just a few moments.
Every day, thousands of people are discovering YOOPERLITES, Michigan's newest, funnest rock to go find on the shores of the Great Lakes. Don't go out with just any light. Try the Convoy C8 from YOOPERLITES.com. It's guaranteed for life, and you'll find all the ones everyone else misses. Quality UV lights that are perfect for YOOPERLITES with prices starting as low as $20. Please make sure to visit YOOPERLITES.com for all your UV flashlight needs with the best guarantees on the market. Just what you wanted and not what you didn't. The best quality, the best guarantees, and the best UV flashlights from YOOPERLITES.com.
Detroitlions will rise.
All right. Hey, good morning, Eric. How are you this morning?
Fantastic, man.
That's better than me. I'm still battling these issues from the hack attempt the other day, so apologize about being late here, but literally had to re-sign into everything again this morning. Doesn't make any sense. But anyway, while I'm still fixing some things in the background, why don't you kick us off with what's going on in Chicago?
Well, I'm going to call this the what name did we come up for Ben Johnson there?
Benedict
Johnson. This is the Benedict Johnson effect. Okay. So for the second year in a row, the Chicago Bears have raised season ticket prices by an average of 10% after raising ticket prices by 8% last season. In my opinion, this may be the Ben Johnson effect on the Bears. Let's take a look. So I found this article from 5 Chicago, and the Bears went 5-12 last season, but have hired coach Ben Johnson and hope to get increased production out of quarterback Caleb Williams in his second NFL season. The Chicago Bears will raise prices of season tickets by an average of 10% for the 2025 season, the team announced Wednesday. In a letter to fans, Bears president and CEO Kevin Warren said that the team evaluated several different factors before deciding on a plan that would raise prices on season tickets at Soldier Field. That sounds eerily familiar. I wonder if their front office is copying our front office on what they're telling season ticket holders. After careful and thoughtful consideration, incorporating market dynamics, industry trends, and strong home schedule, an average increase of 10% for our 2025 ticket package will be instituted, Warren said. The team had raised ticket prices by an average of 8% following the 2023 season, then proceeded to go 5-12 and miss the postseason for the fourth consecutive year. There's growing optimism around the Bears after the hire of Ben Johnson as head coach, which Warren addressed in his letter to fans. He also promised the Bears would be aggressive in free agency and in the draft, where they currently hold 3 of the top 41 picks.
So let me get this straight. The Bears suck.
Yes.
Like Mr. Isaac says, F the Bears. F the Bears. I'm going to have to pull in that sound bite and keep it going in his honor. So the Bears suck. I mean, it is what it is, right? But this ticket price thing, it's mind-boggling to me. And if they're trying to tell their team that they're just on the cusp and we're right around the corner and, we need to raise prices to meet the market demands and everything else, my question would be this. Another record year for the NFL. And when the final report comes out, I guarantee you they're going to smash the record that they had last year. Why do you need to keep whacking fans over the head? If the NFL is doing great, I get it. It's a business. They're not losing money, but you keep driving prices up, and it's ruining the opportunity for anybody to go watch a game without having to spend an arm and a leg or 2 weeks worth of pay. You know, it's crazy. When you look at the average American, what they make for salary, you know, your average median income is probably around $56,000, at least in Michigan. I think that's what it is. And you look at how much, you know, it takes for you to earn that. 1 week's worth of pay might get you 2 tickets to a Lions game. Maybe. After tax. It's bullshit. Sorry. It is. It's BS. Yep. And for the Chicago Bears, I mean, I could care less what they do over there. I mean, they have a stronger market, right? They have a stronger media market. There's more people over there. Their prices are not crazy, but they also have history. You know, they have, maybe a better history than what the Lions do as far as wins and losses in the NFL. They've never had a really good quarterback, but they've at least been able to do some things that we haven't. There was an interesting fact that came out the other day, and I think it was in one of my comments on a video or something that I want to talk about. Just popped in my head thinking about the average of what a team does in the NFL. But anyway, to wrap this up, I guess what are your final thoughts on ticket prices, man? I mean, we've seen tickets go from $50 a seat 12 years ago to $200 a seat now.
Well, I'll say this. If you wait until, I don't know, week 6 or 7, and you find a team that hasn't won a game yet, you're going to find tickets for them for $20-$30 on Ticketmaster.
Yeah.
Literally. So there's no reason that tickets can't be affordable for everyone to go to. There's no reason for it. It's a money grab.
Plain it is. Simple. It is, but you know what? This is why the Rockhound Detroitlions away games are going to be so important this year. I'm going to go to probably more away games than home games, honestly. I want to hit the road and hit the road hard. I think that's where we're most needed. You know, there's no shortage of Detroit Lions fans that'll attend Ford Field. So the Rockhound away game bus tour, all of that information will be coming out next week. So you'll be able to put your deposits in, have to get them in early because I have to pay for things early when the tickets become available from the NFL franchises, which is right around June. You get a random email at a random time. I literally have to be able to part, $12,000 with them instantly. And I'm not going to do that with our money and people not show up. So got to get your deposits in if you want to go. So let's talk about what happened the other day here. We've been following this story through the last year or so with these homes that have been burglarized. And it's former and current NFL, NBA, athletes that on game day even started with Gronk. Like Gronk's house was one of the first ones that was nailed. And these guys are breaking in, during game time because these people aren't home, right? These players aren't home. They're either traveling to away games or they're at their game. No one's there. But you would think that, a lot of these NFL players would have sophisticated security systems, maybe even people staying in their home. Why would the home be empty? Well, apparently this Chilean crime syndicate didn't care. Down in St. Petersburg, Florida, 7 men from Chile, or Chile, however you want to pronounce it, have been charged in the Florida federal court with orchestrating burglaries at homes of prominent professional athletes around the country. And according to this criminal complaint, the FBI doesn't really name the athletes, but we know Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Joe Burrow, Rob Gronkowski, to name a few, and some of the NBA team players from the Milwaukee Bucks, the Grizzlies, even some players from the Tampa Bay Bucks, Cincinnati Bengals, have all had a massive amount of things taken from their home. Maybe not amount like quantity, but dollar-wise. And according to this complaint and report by the FBI, the known burglary ring is known to target high-profile professional athletes when they are known to be away from home, end quote. These guys, this ring allegedly has stolen over $2 million in watches, jewelry, cash, and other valuables, including safes that they later had taken and cracked. So each defendant is charged with conspiracy to commit an interstate transportation, felonies. Obviously, maximum 10-year sentence is only 10 years. It's kind of odd. It's only 10 years. I mean, maybe that's the upside for these guys. If you can hit a big enough job, you're probably going to serve 7, and then you get out, you take care of the money, and you get out and you got all this money. I don't know. But the defendants' names I'm not going to list because I don't need them, getting pissed at me for whatever reason. So you guys can check this out on NFL.com/news 7 Chileans. But much of the evidence that the FBI complaint had found was cell phone data and surveillance video and license plate readers that allegedly placed the defendants in the vicinity of the burglaries. And they typically used crude methods such as breaking windows or prying open, sliding glass doors with crowbars. One of the reports that I read last night, which was about Rob Gronkowski's home, is that this guy went to the house. It was like around 8 p.m. and went and smashed a window in the back to see if the alarm would trip. So he left and then came back an hour later and then did the job. He tried to also create an alibi by going to a grocery store and putting in his phone number and everything, into the, like how you go to like Meijer and you put in your M-Perks, right? So a little perk situation here. So he put his information in. That was probably the stupidest thing he could have done because that placed him near the crime. So that's how they got figured out. And they started watching him at that point. Obviously, these guys are now off the market. So any comments on the 7 Chileans that are now charged?
That's just incredible. You would think that NFL and NBA players would invest a little bit in home security. I mean, I probably have 10 cameras here. So somebody breaks into my house, I'm going to know exactly who it was. And yeah, it doesn't even matter if they take my cameras because everything goes to a cloud. Doesn't matter if they clip my internet. It all goes to a cloud. It's all, with cell phone data. So
yeah, no,
I don't know how an NBA player or an NFL player doesn't go on Amazon and order a $3,000 home security setup.
Well, you just hire somebody, man, especially if these houses are, if they build a house, obviously you hire someone to do it. I used to do security. I would analyze hospitals and, big manufacturing companies, not only for security, but even for the process of capturing information from when they're working on the lines, and watching their hands and looking for injuries or efficiencies or deficiencies. Being a security analyst and doing CCTV type work, it has grown so much now. There's so much that can be done. Shot detection, glass break detection. I mean, you name it. Pretty interesting stuff. I mean, you could actually, I had one job at a big school for 300 cameras we installed, and I installed this, I didn't, but I wrote some of the program for it, which was voice detection. Like sensing the tension in your voice would trigger an aggressive alert. And that would then send police to the school and or notify, your internal staff that in this area of the school, there's some sort of aggression going on, to be aware, whatever threat assessment level that they would place on it. So, I mean, it is so detailed now. There's really no information you can't get from these systems. So, all right, what's up next with these 5 teams that maybe not going to get hit with burglaries, but it could be highway robbery and free agency? What do you got?
Yeah, so let me open this up here. The NFL offseason moves fast and furious, and we are quickly closing in on the first major event centered around player movement, and that is free agency and the legal tampering period, which begins Monday, March 10th at noon Eastern time. And free agency signing period officially begins 2 days later on March 12th, the start of the new league year at 4 p.m. So there are 5 teams that could be hit the hardest this offseason, including the Cowboys and the Eagles. There are plenty of storylines to get excited about. What will the Cincinnati Bengals do with Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Trey Hendrickson? Is Sam Darnold locked to return to Minnesota? Who will want Aaron Rodgers? What are the New England Patriots going to do with all of that projected money? So let's take a look at the top 5 teams that will be losing or possibly losing free agents in free agency. So we're going to start with number 5, the Minnesota Vikings.
Hold on a second. Did you just ask who would want Aaron Rodgers?
That was the question, yeah. And
I don't know of anybody that really wants him, but all right, let's roll here.
Maybe the Minnesota Vikings. I don't know. I've seen a lot of stuff from their fans clamoring for him. So following their impressive 14-3 campaign, the Vikings have free agents at almost every position. Sam Darnold made himself some money with a career campaign in which he threw for 4,319 yards, 35 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. Running back Aaron Jones and Cam Akers are free agents. Starting offensive linemen Cam Robinson and Dalton Reisner are looking for new deals. And then Minnesota has plenty of free agents in the secondary with Byron Murphy, Stephen Gilmore, Shaquille Griffin, and Cameron Byram, who recorded a high 3 interceptions in 2024. Unlike the majority of teams you will find on this list, the Vikings are projected to have plenty of cap space, about $63.3 million. However, the first important decision Minnesota will make is at quarterback, and that could affect how GM Adolfo Mensa, yeah. Oh God, that's a name I can't get. Handles some of his other free agents. So the Vikings unrestricted free agent list is super long. You have a whole bunch of them, and there's got to be 20, 25 on this list. And I mean, just looking at the top ones, Cam Robinson, Sam Darnold, Byron Murphy, Aaron Jones, Dalton Reisner, Cam Akers, Shaquille Griffin, let's see, and you know, and even Daniel Jones, their backup quarterback, and Brent Rippon, their other backup quarterback. The only quarterback they have on their team signed for this year is JJ McCarthy.
Did I just see someone in the chat say trade Sutton to the line? Why would we want Sutton back? I'm sorry, they just kind of caught me off guard, but
yeah.
I
saw something last night that Cam Sutton was the 4th highest fined player in the NFL last season, with over $500,000 in fines.
That's probably because of his, legal issues. I would assume there's no way you got $500,000 in fines, just from hitting people on the field.
There was one guy that had over $1 million. It was crazy.
I guess I'm gonna have to pay attention to that. We'll have to find out what that actually is, because I've never heard of anybody getting fined that much for.
I'll send it over to you.
for like unnecessary roughness type hits. That's just crazy. So on this list here, here's the thing. I think that if Sam Darnold's going to get a deal to stay in Minnesota, I think it's going to have to be somewhere around what the Bucs are paying Mayfield. I think Baker's deal is fairly commensurate to the right deal of what Sam Darnold should probably be looking for. He's going to want to find some sort of a max deal and someone to take him in and be willing to pay him that kind of money. So let's think, where would Sam Darnold have an opportunity to go right now? Well, you've got Pittsburgh, Raiders,
Jets.
Yeah, the Jets, which, I mean, would he want to go back to the Jets?
Yeah.
Probably not.
The Rams, they move off of Stafford.
The Rams, yep, if that happens, which I'm not expecting that to happen. I think Stafford's going to stay for one more year, then he's going to retire. So there's, at least 5 or 6 teams, I would say, in the NFL that would fit Sam Darnold and be able to pay him $35 to $40 million for one season. He'd probably get half guaranteed at $20 million. And depending on how he plays that season, he'll probably have some escalators built into the contract. So, look, I think that Minnesota's going to try to keep him. I don't think it makes sense to move off of the success that he just had. I mean, 4,300 yards, 35 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. That's a hell of a season. Like, not many quarterbacks do that ever in their career. And I don't think that this was a fluke for Sam. I think that he was finally in the right situation. The thing that they're going to have to do, which they're going to have to do for JJ anyway, is they need to secure their offensive line. If they don't secure their offensive line to limit Sam Darnold's happy feet, and seeing of ghosts when his feet do get happy, JJ's not going to have any better of a time. You know, even though he's a little bit more mobile, he's still what is essentially going to be a rookie in the NFL in his first season. You know, watching these 300-pound linemen running sub 4.6s flying at him. So they've got to secure that offensive line, but they do have a bevy. I mean, just a boatload here of unrestricted free agents. I think Jones stays. I think Byron Murphy stays. Not sure about Quessenberry. Cam Akers will probably stay. Cameron Bynum would probably stay. Jonathan Bullard. I wouldn't be opposed to seeing Camus Grugier Hill end up a Detroit Lion or Patrick Jones. I wouldn't be mad at that. Matter of fact, I'd like to see that headline. Moving on to Kansas City, though. Anyway, not really trying to claim the Chiefs Super Bowl window is closing here, but they have some tough decisions to make this offseason. Not only does Pete Prisco, good old Pete Prisco, right, consider the Kansas City having 5 of the top 100 free agents hitting the market next month, but the Chiefs also have less than $8 million in available funds. While $25 million roughly has just been added, their effective cap space, though, is $0 right now. When you look at where they're drafting, it's going to cost about $8 million to sign a rookie class. They really don't have any money. So the added league increase this season is what they're going to have to work with. So players like DeAndre Hopkins, Marquise Brown, Justin Watson, Juju Smith, obviously looking for new deals. I mean, they can definitely, work their magic in some of these contracts, but they're not going to be able to keep all 4 of those guys, without a doubt. Nick Bolton, I think he's gone. I think that he's, had a pretty impressive season. I think he's extremely needed in Kansas City for that defense, but I think he's gone. Tershawn Wharton, who clearly has been playing much better since he's been in the league. He's someone that's going to command a little bit of change on the free agency market, and I expect him to get it. On the other side of that, you still have Josh Uche and Derek Nadi on that defense that are looking for deals. So, I'm interested in Derek Nadi and Tershawn Wharton. Absolutely, I'm interested in the Lions taking a flyer on them. I have not done a deep dive on either one of them this year, but Derek Nadi is somebody that I looked at in previous seasons, and he's playing pretty good ball, but there's a lot of options for the Lions this year. Chiefs' unrestricted free agent pool looks a little bit like this. You've got Hopkins, safety Justin Reed, defensive end Omenahu, wide receiver Marquise Brown, Carson Wentz. Forgot about Carson Wentz. Josh Uche, Tershawn Wharton, DJ Humphries, Derek Nadi, Justin Watson, Samaje Perrin, Nick Bolton, James Winchester, Mike Pennell, Juju Smith-Schuster, Kareem Hunt, Nicole Hardman, Jody Fortson, Marlon Tuipuloto, and Matt Araiza, whatever, punter. Nobody cares about the punter. Who's up next? Dallas.
Man, that sounded like a whole Super Bowl team.
Right?
Wow.
Well, it was twice.
Yeah, it was twice. They're going to have fun this season. Yeah. So remember that fall off that you said was going to happen for the Kansas City Chiefs last year? This may be the year that actually happens.
I could agree with that.
Yeah. So up next, we have the Dallas Cowboys, the team that was the least active in free agency last year. Well, they have some tough decisions this year. Not only does Dallas rank bottom 10 in cap space with the looming Micah Parsons extension to worry about, but the Cowboys also have several important players who need new deals. Now, Osa, oh man, Odigizua?
Just call him. I'm sorry. Hold on. Yeah. That's what I do.
Osa is up for a new contract after recording a career high 4.5 sacks and 47 combined tackles. And 32-year-old DeMarcus Lawrence is a free agent. And then you have their 1,000-yard rusher, Rico Dowdle, and then cornerback Jordan Lewis. And by the way, 9-time Pro Bowler Zach Martin retired yesterday. So that guy literally gave up 7 sacks and had 9 all pros. So he had more all pros than he had sacks given up in his career. Zach Martin, he was a monster. He was really good. And he retired yesterday. At least according to Ian Rappaport. That's what I saw. So the Cowboys unrestricted free agents, man, they got a laundry list here too. Like wide receiver Brandon Cooks, Zach Martin, DeMarcus Lawrence, Trey Lance, Eric Kendricks, Jordan Lewis, Cooper Rush, Linval Joseph, that OO guy, Rico Dowdle, Chauncey Golston, Carl Lawson, their punter, Brian Anger, CJ Goodwin, and then just, hey, even an ex-Lion, Amani Oruwariye, and then Carlos Watkins and Israel Makuma. So they have a laundry list, and they're at the bottom of the league when it comes to money left, and they didn't do anything in free agency last year. So I suppose good old Jerry is saying that he's breaking the bank again this year. Or they're going all in. That's what he said.
They have an OO and an AO up for free agency this season.
Yeah.
All right, Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals have plenty to worry about, obviously, this season. Their biggest looming deals is in the wide receiver room right now. But T. Higgins is looking for a long-term contract. He wants security. And he was franchise tagged last year. And it is doubtful that they're going to do it again this year. It would cost him 120% of the average contract for the wide receivers in the NFL. Now, Jamar Chase's record-breaking extension could also be handled in the coming months. They could do, a rework of that contract. But you also have Trey Hendrickson. So I don't know what's more important here. Do you want to keep one of the best edge rushers in the game? Do you want to keep a tandem in the wide receiver room? If it were me, and this is just me being the Monday morning GM, it's buy Higgins and keep Trey. That's what I would do. And then I would find a wide receiver in the draft. You're more likely to find a receiver that is going to have more success in his first year than you would with a defensive end that is going to have more success. If you get what I'm saying there, it's usually, I would say, wide receivers that tend to have their best years in their rookie season. Or I said that wrong. Rookie wide receivers tend to have a better season than any other position. Let me put it that way. Yeah. Apart from Higgins, though, they have defensive tackle B.J. Hill, veteran nickel Mike Hilton, Trent Brown, Joseph Osai, Mike Gesicki, and Von Bell. They also have a ton of free agents. So Higgins, Hill, Mike Hilton, Trent Brown, Akeem Davis, Gaither, Marco Wilson, Mike Gesicki, Cody Ford, Joseph Asai, edge, Tanner Hudson, linebacker Joe Bacci, safety Von Bell, running back Trayvon Williams, defensive tackle Jay Tufele, I think that's how you say his last name. That's almost French. Defensive end Cameron Sample, and offensive tackle Deontay Smith, running back Chris Evans, and Khalil Herbert. So, they have a list. I wouldn't say it's an impending list of doom. It just depends on what they're going to do with Higgins. I mean, I think that he's at the top of the list here, and Trey Hendrickson not being a free agent, just looking for a new deal and potentially trying to stay in Cincinnati. I think that's the move that they're going to want to try to wrap up. But you know what? The Bengals are notorious for not paying their players. So I think a large amount of these guys are probably going to leave, to be honest with you. Last but not least, Philly.
Yeah, so I've seen both sides of the coin on this. I have seen analysts say that the Philadelphia Eagles can lock up all their free agents and they have all this money. And then I've seen the opposite side where it says this: the reigning Super Bowl champions can't keep everybody. This offseason, Philly has several big names set to hit the open market in free agency and cash in. So defensive end Josh Sweat, who should have won Super Bowl MVP after recording 2.5 sacks and 6 combined tackles against the Chiefs, is a free agent, along with defensive tackle Milton Williams, who recorded a career high 5 sacks this past season and got to Patrick Mahomes twice in New Orleans. Then there's linebacker Zach Bond, one of Will's favorites from the Super Bowl there.
Yeah, for sure.
And they also have veteran defensive end Brandon Graham may retire. Starting right guard Mekhi Becton is a free agent, and linebacker Oren Burks, who stepped in for the injured Nakobe Dean, is also a free agent. So they have a little bit of a laundry list. So Josh Sweat, Zach Bond, Mekhi Becton, Milton Williams. So there, and Brandon Graham. So there's 5-6 names right there that all were contributors in the Super Bowl, and I don't see any way they can keep them all. And teams are going to feast trying to get free agents coming off of a Super Bowl winning team.
They do every year, and this is where, again, I'm going to throw it back in Brad Holmes' lap for just a moment. When people complain about Brad Holmes and the type of players that he's bringing in and where he's drafting players, let me remind you that it is at this time of the year, after you've had an amazing season, you've won a Super Bowl, not the Lions yet, but for the Philadelphia Eagles, it's like, are you in or are you out, right? The old who's coming with me or who's staying with me? And this is where the rubber meets the road for Philly and these players. Do they want to run it back? Do they want to start a dynasty? The next new dynasty, after Kansas City and their end of their run. How willing are they to take less money to stay together? Are they willing to do it for one season and put it all on the line? Because if you get injured in 2025 and it is a 12-month injury, 11-month, 10-month injury, whatever it is, an Achilles, an ACL, something, look, that could ruin the rest of your career. And I think that's why a lot of guys won't bet on themselves that way, because they want security and they want to cash in now. And a lot of these guys, all they're hearing from their agents after the Super Bowl is this. And they want to cash it in. So I don't fault them for that. I would probably be in the same situation, but I guess I'm a little bit more of a sentimental guy, so I'd probably want to run it back. I'd want to keep it together. Keep the band together, man. Play another song and try to get another Super Bowl ring. One of the bigger names though, Eric, is Josh Sweat. And there's been, I don't know, this ungodly amount of love for Josh Sweat. And he's, some premier player off the edge, and he's not. He's really not. I mean, he had one really good season in 2022 where he had 11 sacks. And outside of that, he's been a really good rotational piece. He's been not really so much a rotational piece as he's been a complementary piece. It takes everybody on that defensive line to do what they're doing. He only had 8 sacks this last year, which 3 of them came in, or 4 of them came in the postseason, I believe.
Yeah.
How many did he get in the postseason? He had, he's only credited with 2.5. So he had 10.5 sacks throughout this whole season. Last year, he had 1. And the year before, he had 1.5 in the postseason. In his career, he's had 43 sacks since, 7 seasons. 43 regular season sacks. So is 6 sacks a year game-changing? No. But when people talk crap about Davenport or anybody else that we've had, opposite of Aiden Hutchinson, Zadarius Smith, well, he's getting more than, 8 sacks a season. Davenport surely would have at least racked up 6 sacks on the season. So when you look at a complimentary piece to Aiden and you want to start throwing out names like Josh Sweat, wind it back for a minute. Go look at their stats, because if that's all you really care about is their stats, then he's not a game changer by, definition of we need a guy that is paired up with Aiden to do what Aiden does. We have that already in Zadarius Smith. So it just doesn't get much better than that. It really doesn't. Now he's a little bit older, and that's why I think a rookie makes more sense. But that's my 2 cents on that. As far as the rest of the Eagles staff, they're going to lose players. It happens every year after a Super Bowl, and I don't expect anything different.
Yeah, and it's kind of neat to see that both Super Bowl teams are on this list. and then one playoff team in the Vikings, and then two non-playoff teams on this list, which is kind of surprising. I thought all of the 5 teams would be teams that were playoff contenders at least, because, you know, after coming off a playoff run, those are usually the teams that have expiring contracts and have paid more money towards their people, you know, so they're trying to hit that window, as they call it, which I think is a made up thing.
I mean, I get it. You know, window's a term, just like pass rush by committee's a term. It's just a term. You know, that they're just trying to say that the window is maybe a little bit more open now than it has been in seasons past. And look, the Lions never had a window, right? We've never had a window before to look out of. Yeah, things are a little bit brighter now, but I don't think that this window, to your point too, and I don't really think it exists. I think it's just how do you capitalize on what you did the year before and try not to fall backwards. You know, I think that's the biggest takeaway. Question from the chat, since I was talking about Josh Sweat and his sacks, someone wanted to know, looks like Orner U of M Dad, pressure rate. How we doing on likes and that for the stream? Looks like we have 47 likes, about 100 some odd people in. Look, if we could just get these likes up to 75 real quick, we'll get ads turned off. I see ads just hit. And I don't want you guys to have to watch ads, but we do need to get our likes up so our streams can continue to get out to Lions and NFL fans. So he didn't even make the top 20 this last season. He didn't make the top 20 in the pass rush win rate. I hate it when I say that. Pass rush win rate. It is a tough 4 words to say. When you look at the overall winners, you know, from top down, who had the best pass rush win rate, PRWR, the lowest number on the list was 16%. 16%. So he didn't even have better than a 16% pass rush win rate this past season.
Wow.
I think that's saying something, right? I really do. When you look at, you know, who probably affected the defensive line more, if we look at defensive tackle, Milton Williams was number 6 on the list. Number 6. He had a 13% pass rush win rate. And he played about 50% of the snaps last year. And if I go down the list a little bit more, Ali McNeil was 14th. So he still survived the list after getting injured. That's pretty solid. He was having a really good season. When we look at rookies that maybe would have helped out the situation, here's why the Rams defense is going to be so good. They took Braden Fisk. He made the list as a rookie. He was number 20. 9% win rate. And then they also took Jared Verse. He was number 14. Pretty solid numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty solid numbers. So when I look at what the Lions can do this season, they absolutely can find a rookie that can make that list. I was a little bit surprised to see Penei Sewell's crazy drop-off this year on the list. He was listed as number 20.
Oh, wow. On
offensive tackle pass block win rate. Number 20. Now, he was at 91%, which, I mean, that's no slouch, right? I mean, he had a great season, but he was like number 1 last year.
Mm-hmm.
So he had a big fall off. When we look at edge run stop, right, on the edge, we look at run stop win rates. Jared Verse was number 6. I can't believe this name is even on here. Jadeveon Clowney was number 3. Rashawn Gary was number 1. Max Crosby, number 2. Nobody else listed that I think a lot of us really care about. So it's Jadeveon, Jonathan Greenard, Carl Granderson, Isaiah McGuire, Chauncey Golston, Trevon Walker, Nick Bosa. So some of the other bigger names are not on there. No Lions. Defensive tackle win rates. No Lions on that list either.
So on this list from the 5 teams that we saw with all these free agents, is there one, possibly 2, that you think would make sense money-wise and player-wise for the Detroit Lions and Brad Holmes?
On this entire list?
Yeah, on the entire list, any of the 5 teams, is there 1 or 2 players, do you think, that would be like, you know, perfect in your mind, money wise and play wise fit?
Man, I'd have to really dig in and I mean, if I were to just throw a couple of names out, it would just be based on what I think I know about them, but I would have to do a deep dive into their stats, watch some more tape to really get an idea, look at the contracts, because I can't say that I've looked at the contracts for 100 guys.
Yeah.
So it's really tough to kind of throw out, but let me just take a quick peek here. If we're looking at shoring up, the back end of the defense, if for some reason Kirby Joseph doesn't get extended and does get traded or something crazy, Cameron Bynum would be a name that I would bring in. I mean, he's just always been pretty lockstep and solid every season. For the Kansas City Chiefs, if I were to pull one name off of this list, it would probably be two. Either Treshaun Wharton or Derek Nottie. I wouldn't be mad. Or even Josh Uche. I mean, again, price matters. Price really matters.
Yep.
Cowboys, I don't want any of them. I don't care who they are. Bengals, same situation. I really don't see anybody on here that makes a ton of sense. I mean, there's some good names, but I just don't see a ton. The Eagles is simple, Milton Williams, but he's going to get overpaid. He's going to get huge money, and he's not going to deserve it. And that's just because of what he did, in the Super Bowl and how he performed in the postseason. Good season overall. So he's going to get overpaid. So I would run away from Super Bowl teams. I would probably run away from, the Kansas City Chiefs and Philadelphia Eagles free agency pool simply because they're going to get overpaid. If I know Brad Holmes, it's going to be players that he has history with, and I would probably look at, the other 20 teams in the NFL that didn't have great seasons, but maybe there was a stud on those teams that is looking for just a new deal, but not necessarily to break the bank. Does that make sense?
Yep. Oh yeah. I was just thinking while we were going over the list, I'm like, I wonder if any of these guys would fit, because I really think that Brad is going to be very surgical once again this year, kind of like last year, where he brought in Carlton Davis and he brought in Amik Robertson. That was our two big splash players from free agency last year. And I think that's about what it's going to be this year. One or two guys, not going to do too much else. And it's going to be guys that you're not thinking of, that because I wasn't thinking of either of those last year. Those came out of left field for me.
So I didn't really plan, a Zadarius Smith segment or anything, but I'm seeing some things in the chat here. The one thing that I think that we can all agree on here is we haven't seen Smith and Hutch together.
No.
And I think it's going to be incredible.
Some of these people are saying that Zadarius might get cut because of be a cap casualty. I don't think so. And I don't think on the other side of the coin that Zadarius Smith being in the last year of a contract would hold out either. I think he wants to play and he wants to be on a really good team, which he basically hasn't had in a while. He's been playing with the Browns, and he was able to play with Myles Garrett, but the team was horrible.
Yeah, so here's why it would not make sense to cut. First of all, he would never get cut. He would never get released. That would be idiotic, in my opinion, because you've got a player that can play. There's teams that are going to want him.
Yep.
Why would you release or cut a player that is so valuable? For what reason? If you were to cut him right now, before June 1st, the Lions would lose $5.6 million in dead cap. Why wouldn't you just pay him $5.6 million to play this season? Doesn't make any sense to me. All right, so what if you cut him post June 1? Same thing. $5.6 million in dead cap. All right, how about if we were to trade him before June 1st? Well, let's see. His cap hit would be $3.5 million and up to $11 million in cash this season is what would be due to him. He still has $5.6 million in dead cap. Need to understand more of his contract. But if you were to trade him post June 1, he has a cap hit of $5.6 million still, but it's not dead. So either way you slice the pie here, they could only save about $1.6 million. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But you know what I would do? I would gladly pay. What do we pay for him? A third-round pick?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would gladly take a third-round pick and pay his contract. 1,000%, I'd pay $6 million for a third-round pick all day, twice on Sunday. So look, he's more valuable to the Lions on the squad than he is off the squad, and I think that if you're willing to trade him, then I think that that's a mistake. Only because I don't think a third-round pick, again, going off of the research that we've done already this spring, or not spring, this offseason, less than 15% of third-round picks start in the NFL or play. So you really have to hit it out of the park. And yeah, if Brad had 3 third-round picks to play with, you could probably move up into the, early in the second round, which you could find a guy that could start. They have a much better opportunity to start. So anyway, good segment there. Let me roll into something here that's kind of tied into free agency as well. Try to fit it in here in a few minutes. Potentially underpriced free agents. So here's some underpriced free agents that Brad Holmes may be looking at. I'm not saying that he is. But Dre Greenlaw, he was up on the list early because he suffered, I think it was an Achilles injury.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was not this year, but the previous season. He comes back, he finally gets activated, and then he has a calf injury. So he was pretty much shut down all of last year. So he had a whole year plus to rehab and get better and get healthy. He made 2 starts, obviously, before having that calf injury, but you could clearly see the defense was much better with him on the field. And if he can get back to where he was pre-injury, I think that whoever gets him in 2025, I think it's probably going to be on a 1-year prove-it deal. Let him have his bounce-back season. He's only 27 years old. He's one of the better linebackers, in the game. He's definitely a difference maker. So I think that that's an option for the Lions if you're looking at a cheaper option, 1-year prove-it deal, which we know Brad Holmes loves. Hassan Reddick has creeped up again. Now, Reddick didn't really help his value last season. So for everybody that wanted Hassan Reddick, you saw what happened. This is why I was totally against bringing him into the Lions last year. When he was traded from the Eagles to the Jets, and then he held out into October, he made little to no impact once he did show up. Maybe it's because he missed the entire season with the Jets, or at least in training camp. So he generated just 1 sack and 14 tackles in 10 games. 1 sack and 14 tackles in 10 games.
Wow.
Now, he had a streak prior to that, which, again, this is why he was so attractive. He had 11 sacks 4 years in a row. So, clearly, when you just look at stats and you think that sacks are the end-all, be-all, well, that would have got you in trouble with Hassan Reddick, bringing him in, overpaying him. It would have been a bit perplexing to everybody that if he would have came to the Lions last year and only produced that, Brad would have been run out of town. So, thankfully, he didn't, and I'm a hard pass on Hassan Reddick. That's the only reason why he's on this list. How about Alaric Jackson? He's 26 years old. The Lions obviously would be looking to add a starter and potentially trade away Taylor Decker in 2025. There's been some rumor, not a whole lot of talk on this situation. The Lions just extended him last year, but he had a down year for a large part of the season. Would you want to get younger and potentially bring somebody in like Alaric Jackson who would actually cost less than what the Lions are paying Taylor Decker at this point currently? So he's been a proven commodity on the left side of Matthew Stafford over the past couple of seasons. He might not be an all-pro, but he is steady as both a run blocker and pass protector. He had 22 quarterback pressures allowed in 2024, which matched the likes of Deion Dawkins in Buffalo, which we know Deion Dawkins is one of the best in the league. And Jackson's positive run blocking from the left side also aided in LA's rushing attack, which we know with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, who are going to get utilized often this year. Well, I mean, you'd love to have a better run blocking left tackle. So Alaric Jackson, blindside blocker at $20 million plus. For an over 30-year-old injury-prone Taylor Decker. I think Taylor Decker's 30 this year anyway. Or Alaric Jackson, probably going to cost less than $20 million this year. Anything striking you with these three options?
The first one. So Dre Greenlaw, I think that lines up to be the perfect Brad Holmes candidate.
Yeah, the injury train, right?
Well, not so much that, but he's proven in the league. He's been to a Super Bowl. And listen, he was a very vocal leader on that team. And I remember him having a pretty darn good game versus the Lions in the second half in that NFC Championship game. And remember thinking, man, I wish we had a linebacker like that on our crew. And I think injury derailed him this year. And it's the perfect guy to come in, kind of like Emmanuel Mosley, to give it a shot. If it works, great. If it doesn't, well, you only did a 1 or a 2 year contract with the guy.
Well, I think the interesting part here, though, is when you compare him to like Emmanuel Mosley, the difference is, and so that's a good analogy. The difference is Dre Greenlaw is healed. Like, we know he's healed. He had a calf injury, so he didn't re-injure himself.
Yeah.
He didn't have the other ACL or Achilles blowout, right? He had a calf injury. So it was wise by, the 49ers to shut him down. And I can almost guarantee that the reason why was also related to his contract. So he probably had, something in his contract where he earned so much per game or, whatever, yada, yada, yada. Yeah. Last season, his cap hit was right around $10 million. And, I'm expecting this year you could probably attract Dre with a fully guaranteed $6.5 million deal. That's the number that I'm putting on him. Let's see what the market value is here by Spotrac. Oh, shoot. Look at that. 6.7. 6.7. Good guess.
Pretty good.
Good guess. 1 year, 6.65 is the market value. His average salary throughout the NFL so far, throughout his career in the NFL, is 6.650. NFL rank 307 as far as his salary would be considered. His inside linebacker rank is number 7. So, look, I would take a flyer on the guy. 1,000%. I think you do it. He's being compared to Marcus Davenport, Ashawn Robinson, Trevonde Campbell, and Jelani Tavai as far as contract, value, age, and everything else.
I thought you were going to say something else.
What?
That he was compared to all those guys. No, not he's heads and tails above all those guys.
Yeah, he was just compared for it's comparable players and contracts. That's what Spotrac put up for him. So.
Yeah. And the poor guy, I mean, he's in the Super Bowl, he's getting hyped up. He just does a little, mini jump to go, plant his foot and go it on the field and blows his Achilles out. It was how do you get hurt not even touching anyone?
Well, it's the non-contact injuries that, tend to be the worst. And it happens. I mean, that just tells you that thing was ready to go.
Yeah.
At any moment, the next play, the next time he planted, it was ready to go. So I see the undersized comment there in the chat about Dre Greenlaw. He is only 6 foot, but he's 230 pounds. And I think that when we evaluate players that have been in the league versus coming into the league, if I said that correctly, players that have been playing versus players that haven't played a snap and they're coming, through the draft, he's already proven. So at 6 foot, 230 pounds, he's proven himself that he can play in this league. If I were looking at a 6 foot, 230 pound draftee, someone coming through, I would probably have some questions. I personally like bigger linebackers. I like 6'2" guys, at least 6'1.5", but 6'2". I think 6'1.5" to 6'3" is like that perfect blend. But they're hard to find. I mean, look at Rodrigo. I think he's only 5'10".
Mm-hmm.
You don't necessarily have to be big to play linebacker. You just have to have the ability and the skills to be able to cover. Longer arms obviously helps. His arms are a little bit on the shorter side too, but again, I would err on the side that he's proven himself. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't take a flyer on him. That's just how I operate. But I'm also in this chair. I'm not in Brad's chair. All right, sounds like tampering. Or does it smell like team spirit? I don't know. We'll be back here in just a moment. We're going to be talking about Aiden Hutchinson and Myles Garrett coming up next. Here, and you want the latest news and rumors on your Detroit Lions. Head to sportspider.com. That's sports, SPYDER.com, where you can get your Lions news and all your sports in one place. Man, this site is packed with your favorite podcasts, live news, articles from local writers, and insiders, all updating in real time. Not just the Lions, every major sports team, including MMA, UFC, and so much more. Don't want to waste time searching? Sign up for free. Create your ultimate sports news hub. You control what hits your feed at SportsSpider, your number one source for all your sports. Visit sportspider.com today, right after the show. Okay. So this article popped out last night. And I did a video on it. Hasn't really flown around the internet yet. But thanks, Ryan. I appreciate you telling me that. I'll fix that. I'm not sure why, but I'll fix it. I'll fix it right now so it doesn't happen again. Maybe I won't.
Just to remind everybody, we only need a few more likes to get the ads turned off.
Yeah, I just dialed them back so we could get through this segment and hopefully not have an ad hit. So, all right, sounds like tampering. NFL fans reacting to the Aiden Hutchinson, Myles Garrett drama. I don't know if it's really drama. I think the only drama here is these NFL fans that are not happy with the news that possible, star pass rushers Myles Garrett and Aiden Hutchinson could be on the same team. But more importantly, that they've been in contact. And if Garrett gets traded to the Lions, I think that even more of this nonsense is probably going to rain down on the Detroit Lions franchise. Now, this obvious pair of elite defensive ends are going to give quarterbacks nightmares for years to come, even after they retire, if they're on the same team. Garrett has already made it clear that he wants to leave for a championship contender. After several years in Cleveland, it's time for him to move on, and he's made his position clear. He did it 2 weeks ago. But then there was some conversation that had, between, even Jared Goff was there and Aiden Hutchinson at the NFL Honors Awards night. But then Hutchinson also revealed on the Taylor Lautner podcast, I think it's called The Squeezes or something. I'm not sure what it is. But it was their Super Bowl edition follow-up. That he had spoken with Myles Garrett, is what Aiden said. And in this episode that aired on February 19th, Aiden said that they had spoken about the possibility of Garrett joining the Lions and, quote, "We were just talking about what could be," end quote. Look, I think that it would be incredible, if the Lions were somehow, to pull off this Myles Garrett thing and it didn't hurt the team. It didn't hurt the team's future. It didn't hurt the team's cap availability, but that's just unlikely. Aiden has also been very public about the fact that he feels that bringing in another guy like that is not likely, simply because of the amount of money that it would take and or the draft assets that it would cost. So he's been on both sides of the fence. Yeah, of course he would love to play and learn. Let's not forget, Aiden would be learning from Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett is heads and shoulders above Aiden Hutchinson's eliteness right now. Yeah, he's elite, but he's not in that same crowd as a Myles Garrett yet. But he has the elite intangibles. He has the elite measurables, minus the arms. But anyway, we'll move past that part. Here's the quote from this podcast where Aiden Hutchinson said this. He said, quote, "If me and Myles were to pair up, that would be deadly, I was talking to him. We were at the honors, and we were just talking about what could be. And although it's probably unlikely, I think I would be thrilled to play next to him if it were to happen. But yeah, our whole D-line would be totally elevated. And we would, that'd be a scary defensive line. We get along, too. I've seen him these last few years at different things. He texted me after I got hurt. It was just a cool thing. Guys outside of your own team who reach out to you. So I think he's a good dude. If he does, great. But I don't know. We'll see. But that would be awesome. End quote. Look, I'm not taking a whole lot out of this quote as far as tampering here. But then I went a little bit further. And of course, I brought up the NFL rulebook. Why wouldn't I? I mean, you guys know that if I'm going to make a comment on something or a statement, a video, whatever it may be, that I'm going to try to get the actual facts. Now, the NFL rulebook on tampering with other players, it's clear and it's not clear. And what I mean by that is it does talk about players, what they can and can't do, and teams and what they can and can't do. So the anti-tampering policy, oh shoot, I don't have NFL credential to sign into that one. Hold on a sec. Here we go. The anti-tampering policy is pretty simple, but it was designed, and the purpose of the anti-tampering policy as it relies or applies to tampering with players is to protect member clubs, contract, and negotiating rights. That's it. And at the same time, they want to allow intra-league competitive systems devised for the acquisition and retention of players' talent, which they talk about the draft and the waiver system, free agency rules, and everything else that's involved in the CBA. And to be able to operate the NFL efficiently, right, and have competitive fairness amongst teams, these rules have been designed. So the NFL tampering policy does talk about college players, but then it also talks about NFL players in bullet point 2. Now, I'll go ahead and post this in the chat here in just a moment, but let me read it to you. It says, NFL players, no club nor any person employed by or otherwise affiliated with a club. So let me stop right there. No club, so no Detroit Lions franchise, nor any person, nor Aiden Hutchinson, employed by the Detroit Lions or otherwise affiliated with the Detroit Lions, are permitted to tamper with another player, Myles Garrett, who is under contract with the Cleveland Browns, or whose exclusive negotiating rights are held by another club, the Cleveland Browns. So that's the defining terminology. Now, the following provisions amplify and also clarify what this policy means, or is, how concerning it can be for NFL players, or how it concerns, or how it applies, to NFL players. So an example of tampering is this, and I think that we've been through it before. We've seen what tampering looks like. But following, there's got to be a chain of events. It has to be enumerated. There has to be, evidence and things of that nature, which now we've seen a couple of instances of possible evidence. But number one, here's an example. A club's representative, we'll call that a scout, or a third-party intermediary of that club. We'll call that the franchise's attorney. So Club A, we'll say the Detroit Lions, is involved in a private meeting or a conversation with a player, Myles Garrett, or his agent representative, right? Who's also under contract or whose negotiating rights are held by another club. Club B, we'll call that the Cleveland Browns. So that has to happen, or it's a player from the Detroit Lions. It's an agency, member for the Detroit Lions. It's a franchise member of the Detroit Lions. Whoever that individual is cannot or should not be involved in any communication with another player talking about what could be potentially. Now, the league obtains substantiation that after or during the above contact, so player-to-player contact, club-to-player contact, agency representative to player contact, that Club A has stated publicly or privately its interest in obtaining his services. Now, the Lions haven't done that, right? The Lions haven't done that, but Aiden did. So if you really want to stretch this thing, you probably could. Do I think anything is here? I really don't. Now, 3, contract problems or otherwise disputes that subsequently arise between the player and the club. Well, Garrett wrote a letter to Cleveland and said, I don't want to be here anymore. I'm out. So the question will be this simple and how it's answered. Did Aiden have any contact with Myles prior to that letter? If he did, there's tampering. If he didn't, y'all just need to go bury your head in sand and stop crying about spilled milk I get it. You're worried that Aiden and Miles are about to terrify the NFL. That's the whole thing here. Y'all are salty. Just give it up. If it happens, it happens. I don't believe that there's tampering here. And the only way that there could be is if someone can prove that there was some sort of communication between these two prior to him writing that letter to the Browns. It's that simple. Eric, what do you think?
I think that Sean McVay and Stafford were in a hot tub down in Maui or wherever it was. And
Cabo.
nothing never happened with that.
Yeah, they were in Cabo. So you know what? There was another question that someone put in the chat last night or the comments, and I just posted that article. I think it was actually from Cleveland, a Cleveland site that posted it. So not the article talking about the tampering, but the actual NFL tampering policy. So I like to give you the evidence, but I'm also going to give you the facts to go with it, and you can read it for yourself. So there was another instance of tampering that was mentioned, and they were saying St. Brown and Darius Slay. The podcast, where he was talking about coming to Detroit. I don't remember everything that was said in that podcast, and I didn't pull any of the tidbits from it, but someone said that maybe there's tampering there too, because Amon-Ra St. Brown was he eliciting the services of Darius Slay to come back to Detroit? Again, that would be tampering. It is considered tampering to a degree. If you are eliciting the services of another player that has his rights controlled by another team, and you yourself as a hired football player for the Detroit Lions, you are an agency representative. You are a franchise employee. So, yeah, there's a lot of this crap that happens, but I think a lot of it chalks up to a whole bunch of nothing burger, to be honest with you. So, go ahead.
You got to remember, all these players are friends. They played with each other on other teams, or they have teammates that played with them, and they all know each other. Like Hutch said that when he broke his leg and he was in the hospital after having surgery, you want to know who gave him a text and said, "Hey man, I hope you're feeling better. Quick healing." Myles Garrett.
Yeah.
He's never played with him before or anything. They're all friends. They all talk with each other. If the NFL was to dump every phone from every player and see all the talk they do with each other, it would look very incriminating. Just the way they talk with each other, because they're all friends.
I would have to agree that I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that is talked about. I'm sure that there's a lot of coaxing going on to, hey, come play with us. And, look, the NFL's probably not going to do anything about that. I think that if it was, I think that if Dan Campbell hopped on a plane and or drove down to Cleveland and just so happened to pop into a Starbucks and get his double red eye or whatever he calls it, and Myles Garrett happens to be there eating a blueberry scone, and they're just talking about what could be, that's tampering. But that's not what's happening, in my opinion. Look, boys will be boys, right? There's locker room talk. Of course people talk about this stuff. These players always talk about what could be, and I don't think that there's anything here. I really don't. So, Aiden, look, I think that you're clear in my book, dude. But I did look up some other information. So, has Detroit Lions ever been found guilty of tampering? What do you think, Eric? Does anybody, and in the chat, have we ever been guilty of tampering?
No.
You think the answer is no? What do you guys think in the chat? Let me put up a poll real quick, because I'm curious. Don't be looking either. Don't be looking. Let me put the poll up.
And now you're testing my brain. It's too early in the morning.
Well, I mean, it's not like we would. Now, this is not about today, right? This is not about Aiden. This is about ever. Have we ever had a tampering case against the Detroit Lions? And I'll come back to that. I'll come back to that.
Did for something. We did.
I'll come back to that. So, Eric, you're giving people the answer. You can't do that. And you Googled it.
No, I did. I got my hands in my hand warmer here. I'm freezing. Look, see, my hands are under my hood. See,
Uh-huh.
Oh, frozen.
So, all right, let's move forward here. What do we got next here? We got Detroit Lions news coming at us after that. So let's see. 2025 draft board. Now, this morning I was reading an article by Justin Rogers. And last night we just so happened to do, this article came out this morning, happened to do a members only review of some defensive tackles. And we saw some really good athletes in this upcoming draft. Let me sign in. I got to sign in again. You've got to be kidding me. What is going on here? I shouldn't have to sign in 60 times a day. This is nuts. There we go. Okay. So 2025 draft loaded with defensive tackle talent for the Lions to consider in early rounds by Justin Rogers. So we did some film study last night. We looked at some highlights. We didn't really go through the games, but we looked at Mason Graham. No, we didn't look at Mason Graham last night. We looked at Derek Harmon. We looked at Kenneth Grant out of Michigan. We looked at Walter Nolan. Who else? We looked at Darius Alexander. And as impressive as Alexander was, we looked at Shamar Turner, even though we were trying to stick with DTs. We looked at a couple other. I also threw up Josh Paschal. And I did that for a reason, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But let's start with Derek Harmon and Grant here. So Derek Harmon obviously played for Michigan State for 3 seasons, and then he moved on to Oregon. And yeah, he did kind of terrorize, the Big Ten for quite a while he was in Michigan State or at Michigan State. I forgot all about the fact that he played for MSU this year. Well, not this year, but I forgot this year that he played in the past for MSU when I was watching his Oregon tape. But this year he had 14 games, right? 45 tackles, 11 for loss, 5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 55 quarterback pressures. Love what this dude does on the football field. Absolutely. Now, he is a Detroit native, so there's a link, right? He spent 3 years at State before he concluded his college career at Oregon. Now, if Graham reminds you of McNeil, according to Justin Rogers, Harmon's profile more closely resembles what we saw from a healthy Levi Onwuzurike in 2024. I don't know if I can make that comparison just yet. I'd have to actually go watch them side by side. But the added benefit, obviously, is a little bit more height and length, which you can't argue with more height and length. Harmon lined up across the defensive line for the Ducks, seeing action from the 1 tech, the gap between the center and the guard, to just outside the offensive tackle's shoulder, which should be 5 tech or 4I or whatever it is. As a pass rusher, he wins with a quick first step, has heavy hands. They can knock a blocker back. As a run defender, he uses his length to his advantage when facing a single blocker. Against doubles, he is more inconsistent with his leverage and anchor. I liked his tape. I thought that he was, I thought that he looked good. I was obviously extremely impressed with Kenneth Grant. There is not one person, not one player that he went up against that I felt could contain him. And constant double teams, constant doubles in a chip. They used a zone block scheme against Kenneth often. And he still found his way to the quarterback. He still found his way to get his hand up, which is what I really appreciated last night. He knocks down a lot of passes. That's what this defensive line is missing. If the Lions can somehow move up, which I'm not thinking they're going to do, and snag Kenneth Grant, that would be the biggest win out of this draft. To bring in a guy like that to secure this defensive front in the wake of Ali McNeil getting healthy, I think the Kenneth Grant would be incredible add to this team. He, in 12 games, had 32 tackles, 7 for loss, 3 sacks, 27 quarterback pressures. Perfect. Love his work. 6'3", 340 pounds. So he's more of a DJ Reader style of a defensive tackle, meaning he'd play over the nose more often than not. And he definitely overwhelms with, with his strength. He clearly can bull rush anybody, but his strength was on display last night in the highlights that we watched. And he's smart. He's constantly looking for the football, right? His awareness of where the football is at all times is why he's able to get his hands up and bat those balls down. As a run defender, he usually provides a real strong anchor against one-on-one blocks. His leverage can be a bit inconsistent, potentially related to conditioning, and that is the other factor. I think his conditioning is a little on the edge, and that might mean that he's only a 45, 55% snap guy. So you're still going to need, to have him rotate in and out. He's not going to be, a 3-down guy. So when you look at Aleem McNeil coming back, that's a very good rotation between him and Aleem, or DJ Reader and Kenneth Grant. So I think you stack. We hopefully don't lose DJ Reader, but if we do, you're going to have to get Kenneth Grant or somebody else that can obviously affect the pocket. Walter Nolan looked good, just not as good, but he looked good. He had 13 games last year, 48 tackles, 14 for a loss, 6.5 sacks, 35 quarterback pressures. I would say that he's the clear number 2 in this draft. He might even be number 1 once we see what happens at the combine. If the Lions were to somehow snag Derek Harmon, Kenneth Grant, or Walter Nolan, it's not a miss at all. Darius Alexander, though, the guy that I've been high on this whole season so far, the more tape that I've watched, the worse it's getting for me. He is going to be a 2-year project, at least. And I'm not saying that he can't come in and contribute right away, but he's going to be a low snap guy. He's probably going to be a 45 to 55% snap guy. His conditioning was clearly an issue during a lot of the snaps that I watched, taking plays off from the backside. If the ball's going the other way, he's not chasing it down. He had 40 tackles this last year, 8 for loss, 3.5 sacks, 1 interception, 35 quarterback pressures. But he also played for Toledo. And the level of competition in Toledo is just not as great, especially on the offensive line. It's different for Quinn and Mitchell going up against wide receivers, but going up against an offensive line, he could have his way with just about anybody. I could see him being an eventual starter, but I don't think that he's going to come in year 1 and completely revolutionize, the position. I think that he's a mid-day 2 or a mid-second round pick right now until we see what happens at the combine. But either way, I just wanted to highlight a little bit of what Justin Rogers wrote about the defensive tackle being a little bit heavy, and I agree with that. We've heard from some others that they think that this is not a deep draft. It absolutely is. Lastly, I will say this. Nick Scorton, we watched last night. Loved his work. It's not the first time I've watched him, but he reminded me of somebody. Every time I watch his tape, I kept having flashbacks of number 4 for Kentucky, and that was Josh Paschal. So I would implore you guys to go flip on Josh Paschal's highlights and then flip on Nick Scorton's highlights, and then come back in the next show and tell me what you think. Because I think there's more to Paschal, and I clearly see that why we put him out on the edge, because he did it at such a high level. So Josh Paschal, I think there's more in the tank. I think the problem is he put up a bunch of weight since he left college, and that's why he's been playing more on the defensive line. If he could drop down to 270, 275, I think that you're going to see Josh Paschal completely terrorize the edge this year for the Detroit Lions. So Warren King, yes, I'll take a look at Ty Robinson, and I'm going to start putting up some videos here pretty soon. So, Eric, what do you think about defensive line for the Lions? Any players that you're excited about?
Well, I see in the chat that Kenneth Grant is a very popular option. Everybody's praying that he drops to the Lions.
There's no U of M fans in this chat at all, I guarantee it.
Yeah, there's none. I mean, geez, I thought we'd have 1 or 2 anyway. I think he'd be kind of a pipe dream. I think he's going to be gone by then. Just looking at how a lot of the mocks are going so far. Now, we haven't seen any of these guys at the combine yet, which is going to be very telling. And that's what I'm looking forward to. I don't want to make any, because I don't know any of these players. So I don't want to make any assumptions of any of these guys yet. But defensive tackle, that's my number 1 hope for the Detroit Lions in the draft this year, is to get a tackle. Oh, Will took off for a second. So your poll had 36 votes. Have the Lions been guilty of tampering? No, 75%, and yes, 25%.
So the answer to that is yes. And let me pull it back up. I accidentally think I closed it.
Was it Trey Flowers or something to do with Ndamukong Suh?
Hold on.
That's my two guesses. I'm sure I'm wrong.
Hold the phone here. So this was back in 2011. 2011. So the Detroit Lions found guilty of tampering with the Kansas City Chiefs. February 18th, 2011, Jason Conforna reported that the Detroit Lions were guilty of tampering with the Kansas City Chiefs. Their punishment for tampering, they forfeited a 7th-round pick, one that they had acquired from the Denver Broncos via the Alphonso Smith-Dan Gronkowski trade, and swapping 5th-round picks with the Chiefs. So the Chiefs' accusation of tampering against the Lions first came out in December of 2010, when a charge was filed against the Lions. The charge specifically was about the Lions' defensive coordinator, Gunther Cunningham. It turned out that Cunningham's comments to the Detroit Free Press that were made during the 2009 season but not published until February of 2010 were the source of the tampering charge. The quote was this: the Chiefs keep wanting to dump players, defensive coordinator Gunther Cunningham said. I would like to be there to catch a lot of them because I know a couple of those guys. That's all he said. That was it. So when you look at the possibility of tampering, when I came across this, I'm like, if that's all he said and the Lions got nailed for tampering, man, a whole lot's been said in the past week here about Myles Garrett and Darius Slay. So that's why I'm a little bit concerned, but not really, because I still think it's just a bunch of hogwash. So something as small as that got the Lions in trouble.
Yeah.
Something as small as that. Now, before that, I think that was it. But there was some other reports, though, that came out. Remember when I was talking about the Ben Johnson tampering stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Well, there was a report that came out talking about Ben Johnson saying that he knew nothing about Tom Brady and Tom Brady tampering, because remember, Tom Brady was on the sideline during one of the games and they were talking or whatever. And so, look, if Ben was involved in high-level conversations about going to another team as a coach, which I think he was tampered with, and I also think he tampered, it's going to come back to bite him. It will get him at some point. It stinks, man. Something stinks about Ben Johnson. I think the guy's grimy now. I respected the hell out of him when he was in Detroit for what he was doing. But the more and more and more I think that I'm learning about him, I feel like he did us kind of dirty, you know, and everything that he's got going on over there.
I noticed something with Benedict Johnson there. He is trying to be a carbon copy of Dan Campbell. He's saying the same phrases, saying the same words. And when we tried to do that, we tried to take Patricia from the Patriots and have him do everything like Bill Belichick. It did not work. You have to be yourself. You have to be you. You have to be original. You have to be authentic. When you're trying to be someone else, it doesn't work.
Exactly. And I could say that about some other people, but I won't. I'll save it. So you had an interesting topic, and I'm going to say hell to the no on this one. But go ahead.
All right. I'm going to ask you guys in the chat a question. Should the Detroit Lions reunite with Jonah Jackson? And this was a story by Mike Payton from A to Z. So I was scouring the internet last night, doing some research for this morning show, and I came across a headline that the Detroit Lions would be wise to bring back a former third-round pick. Little did I know they were talking about Jonah Jackson, who just signed a $51 million contract with the LA Rams last offseason. Never in a million years did I expect to be talking about bringing back Jonah Jackson to the Lions. Let's see why Mike Payton thinks we should take a look. Let me get back to it here. So this is what Mike Payton had to write. The Detroit Lions are in an interesting place with their interior offensive line right now. They could potentially lose Kevin Zeitler to free agency if they're not available to bring him back. And then there's the possibility that Graham Glasgow could be a cap casualty. I haven't heard that one yet. The Lions do have Christian Mahogany, and from what we saw from him in his rookie year, he could be ready to start in 2025. The most likely route here is that the Lions do bring back Zeitler, and Mahogany could find a spot to start. But if Detroit moves on from Glasgow and they feel like they want to give Mahogany just a little bit more time to cook, bringing back Jonah Jackson should be the way to go for this team. Hogwash. The Lions took Jackson in the third round of the 2020 draft, and he did put up a Pro Bowl season for them in 2021. Injuries got the best of him in 2023, and the Lions looked to upgrade with Zeitler. Jackson signed with the Rams, but it did not work over there at all. Like, he only ended up playing for just 4 games. So once again, it was the guy had injuries and only played 4 games. And now they're talking about him being a cap casualty for the Rams. And they're talking about how Matthew Stafford's cap is at $49.7 million this year for 2025. So sounds like the Rams are going to have to make some financial decisions. And one of those decisions is going to be with Jonah Jackson. So what would you guys think of bringing Jonah Jackson back to the Detroit Lions? I say hell to the no. No way. We don't need him. You talk about an often injured player. I mean, the guy has a hangnail and decides he doesn't want to play, it seems like. Or he's just injured every single game. Something's always wrong. He's always missing time. So for me, I would say no. I would rather just keep what we have and keep on going. Try to re-sign Zeitler if we can. And if we can't, well, Mahogany, it's your time to shine.
So let me shed a little light on this. We'll talk about the contract component to this. It would not make sense for the Rams to move off of Jonah unless they did a post-June 1 trade. If they did a post-June 1 trade, that then they would effectively have a cap hit of if they did a pre-June 1 trade, they would have a cap hit of $11.3 million in 2025. If they did a post-June 1 trade, they would have that split over 25 and 26. So 5.6 this year, 5.6 next year. Now, if the Lions were to bring him back, he'd only be a $9 million cap hit this year. And then the next season, we could get rid of him, and they could save themselves $8 million on a roster bonus. So if you cut him before roster day, again, his salary would only be $9 million for the season, which the Lions obviously wouldn't be paying any of that. He had a signing bonus of only $5.6 million when he signed with the Rams in 2024. I didn't realize he got shafted this badly. Like, his contract is terrible. Yeah, he got $51 million, but only 5.6 was a signing bonus. I mean, I don't even know the full guarantee here, but this contract does not look bad at all when you look at it. You could bring him back for a season if you really needed somebody, and you could dump him next year, and it probably wouldn't cost you but $9 million. So, I mean, there's a way that it could work, but yeah, no, I'm good. I think the fact that he's constantly injured, like you said. Dan Campbell came to the mic the one day and he said, do you remember when he said, well, we'll see if Jonah's ready to play or not. He'll let me know when he's ready to play, or something to that point. You could tell that Dan was pissed. Like, come on, dude, get your butt on the field, you know?
Jonah's not a grit guy.
No. Nope. And he probably just learned out in LA that he's not an LA guy either.
Yep.
So, all right,
Yeah.
what's up next? Carlton Davis news?
Sure. So yesterday I came across an interview with Carlton Davis, and this was kind of intriguing.
Now, I didn't bring any sound bites in, so
No, which is fine. Whoa, what happened here? Let me see. I got to do this one more time. All right. So yesterday I came across an interview with Carlton Davis where he talked about Dan Campbell being hands down his favorite coach of all time. Little did I know that I would be watching a 3+ hour interview. Here are some highlights about what he said about Dan Campbell and the Detroit Lions. I also learned that when Tom Brady came to the Bucs with Carlton, that the entire team completely changed and went from hoping to having a winning season to expecting to win a Super Bowl.
hey, real quick, where was the part where he was talking about Dan Campbell in the podcast? I don't remember. What minute? What minute part?
Yeah, it's in here. So, let's see who did this. So Jeremy Reisman did an article about this podcast that he was on, and let me see.
I think you texted it to me. I thought maybe you just knew off the top of your head.
I think it was the 4850. So if you want to jump to the Dan Campbell portion, it says it's at the 4850 mark.
Okay. All right, keep going. I'll try to pull it in.
All right. So this whole thing with Carlton Davis is he's facing free agency in a couple weeks, and it's unclear if he's going to run it back with the Detroit Lions. However, during a recent appearance on the Slightly Decent podcast, Davis made some comments that suggest he may want to come back. The Detroit Lions cornerback spent about 4 minutes talking about how much he loves Detroit Lions head coach Dan Campbell. It started with the story about Detroit's week 2 loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. As you may remember, the Lions made a huge mistake at the end of the first half. With the clock running around 10 seconds, the Lions had to make a decision as to whether to spike the ball to stop the clock or rush the field goal team onto the field. The offense ended up staying on the field, but half of the field goal team and half the team decided to run off the sidelines, and as a result, Detroit spiked the ball, but there were too many men on the field, and a 10-second runoff ended the half without the Lions getting their chip shot field goal. Detroit would end up losing the game 20-16. This was a play that Davis said they worked on time and time again, and so he was shocked and impressed to see Dan Campbell take so much ownership of the entire loss after the game. So this is paraphrasing Carlton Davis here. He went on to say, he went in the locker room, bro. He was crying. He was like, blame your coach. He was really like, blame your coach. You can blame me. You can blame me. Davis recalled. He took full accountability. I have never in my 20 years of playing football have ever had a coach just say, I lost the game for y'all, and there's plenty of other plays guys could have made. So Campbell took those comments public, telling the media after the game that their head coach lost them this week. So it was pretty cool that Carlton Davis did this interview, and he went on to talk more about Dan Campbell and how Dan Campbell was his favorite coach of all time. And he talked about Tom Brady and how when Tom Brady came to the Bucs, their team completely transformed from day one, the minute that he walked into the Bucs facility. And it ended up being a pretty neat interview, but it's very long, and you have to get through a bunch of yapping and talking because they're just a bunch of friends sitting around talking, and it's not like a formal interview style podcast.
Yeah, so let me try to actually bring it in here. Oops, sorry. I think I can bring it in. We got a few minutes here that we should be able to make this happen.
All right.
Let's see. That's not it. Here we go. That's it. And I'm just going to start it at like 48. 20. Nope. Keep going because they're talking about some other stuff.
Yeah, because he was talking about Tom Brady in Tampa Bay, and then in the Tampa Bay game, and then he kind of reverts it into talking about Dan Campbell.
Yeah, so I'll just apologize for any language or anything else that is potentially in this.
There's a bunch.
Yeah, so it's not my fault. And I think we're good. Let me see if I can bring it in. Okay, slightly decent podcast. Eric, I don't see you. Let's get you up in here. There he is.
There I am.
Right in the middle. Why are you taking up all the space?
Because I'm big.
All right. Let's get you down in the corner. Okay. So slightly decent podcast. Cam Sutton. Oh my God. Carlton Davis.
Somebody in the chat asking, what was the best Dan Campbell story? Because he was a character. He is a character. Not was a character. He is a character, man. What's your best Dan Campbell story?
Bro, I ain't gonna lie, bro. When I knew Dan was a real one, bro, was when we lost to the Bucks. And it was like right before halftime, it's something we work on all the time too. Like, bro, Dan, Savion, you know Dan, bro. Like, he a real situational guy. Like,
Facts.
every day he
Everything
works in
situation.
situations like every day, bro. Like, he's too
Everything.
prepared, bro. So we work the situation, you know what I'm saying? And it's just like when you get the field goal unit on the field right before the time expired and shit like that. And we call it hurricane. And it just ain't happened. Like, the execution just wasn't there. So after the game we lost, I think we lost by like 3 points. It was like 23-20 or something like that. And he went in the locker room, bro. He was crying. He was just like, man. It's like, blame your coach. he was really like, blame your coach. Like, he was like, you could blame me. So you could blame me. You know what I'm saying? He took full accountability, bro. I've never, in my 20-something years of playing football, has ever had a coach just say, I lost the game for y'all. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it's plenty of the plays guys could have made. You know what I'm saying? Just to
and that
get the
shit
game
matters,
going.
bro. That shit matters to the players, like you were
Bro,
just saying. Like,
yes,
that shit matters
bro,
to us,
like,
bro.
no,
Like,
fuck,
hearing
like, damn.
hearing that from the head guy, it's like, all right, bet, I'm cool. Like, I'm
He a
cool.
real
Like,
one,
you know
bro.
what I'm saying? Because it gets ugly. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'll talk about Bruce Arians. Like, when we play for I'm not saying that he's a bad coach, none of that. Like, I like him, he's a good coach, all that good stuff. But like, if you play bad,
He was a blame. He was a blamer though. There's some coaches that just gonna blame you, bro. Like, like
you
said,
you
it's
play
nothing
bad,
against
like
him.
you gonna know, like it ain't blame it on me. It's like shit, what y'all do?
Facts.
You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah, but ain't gonna lie,
So
Dan,
that shit
Dan go
matters.
both ways, bro.
All right. Apparently YouTube doesn't like that, so I'll just have to clip it out later.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. What is it even saying here? It's saying something in here. Oh, that was a different video. It just popped up. Different video.
Ah, okay.
So let me go back to that. Hold on. I mean, I think we got the most of it, right? Was there anything else that he said?
Yeah, that was the most of it. And then oh man, it's hard to decipher because this video was so long. I mean, I listened to it on the way to town, all the way in town, on my way back from town, grocery shopping, the whole ball of wax. So it was a very, very long interview. They're just sitting around talking for 3 hours and they talk about a bunch of silly stuff. And this portion was the best little portion, talking about Dan Campbell. And doesn't that sound like a guy that wants to come back and play for Dan Campbell? And he did talk about breaking his jaw, and he's like, man, I broke my jaw for that guy. So, you know, of course I want to come back and play for him, you know?
Yeah, I think we got the most of it. You know, he was talking about, obviously, Dan, you know, he wants to run through a wall for this dude. And I'm not so sure on their decorating choices here. Like, I don't know what's going on in this background. They've got a way too small of a tree for these giant ass bulbs on it. I mean, what is going on here, guys? Like, I think you need a female in the room or something.
Yeah, I tried to go and find out who the host of the show was, and I couldn't. I know he's an NFL player, or former player. I couldn't figure
I don't
it
know
out.
I don't know who he is either. It's not ringing a bell. Like the face is
Well,
not.
I
it's
even
not-
did a Google search on the podcast and everything, the name of the podcast, and they don't have very many subscribers, so it's something that's new. It's been around for a year, but they got 90 something episodes. I just
Yeah.
couldn't figure out who they were.
Yeah, I tried to send them a message yesterday to get some more info to see if they wanted to come in and talk and whatever. But we'll see if they get back.
Yeah.
Because my goal is to get Carlton on. Really, that's the goal.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. So anyway, again, I have to apologize for yesterday. I'm really disappointed in the way that my interview went with Darius, because we don't really have those issues. In the last week or so, we've had a lot of issues with, like, we went a long stretch without any problems, and ever since this hacker thing happened, and I'm not going to use excuses as the answer here, but the hacker and then losing internet, man, we just really had a tough time making it work yesterday. But I did reach out to the people that make the plugins, and it sounds like he's working on a fix so that I can make sure that everybody hears the audio that's in the studio.
Nice.
Which we've always struggled with. For whatever reason, if you come in on a phone or something, it's a problem. So
Well then, yeah, we can't, like, I couldn't hear the video. I have to mute my mic and then listen to it on my phone on a delay.
yeah, he said he'll code something if he has to.
Yeah. Well, you know
make it
what?
work.
You know what we can take away from all of this? So yesterday, Darius Juju Williams was on the show, and he said something that was kind of profound. So when something happens, you can make an excuse, or you can make it into an opportunity, something like that. And so instead of making excuses out of this, we're going to use it as an opportunity, and maybe something bigger and better will come out of this.
Well, yeah,
No.
it's working with the people that make the software to have them make something. So the opportunity is
There
to
we go.
help their software get better and help what I'm able to do with their software be better for the show. I mean, that's the opportunity, right? So thank you to Darius Juju Williams for giving us, and it was very profound what he had said. I mean, a young mind coming to the table with not accepting excuses as the answer, but utilizing that problem, whatever you're facing, as an opportunity. And I've always said this, like, you have to fail in life to succeed. And I used to put this on my bios that I failed to succeed in life with whatever career, path I was in. Like, you're going to fail at some point. But what I did that was different than anybody else is I made sure that I knew everything that I could. And I always had people looking at me sideways like, why do you want to know what type of screws this installer used? Why do you care, how thick this material is? Or why do you care what the warranty is? It says that it's lifetime. And I'm like, yeah, but not all lifetime warranties are the same. Obviously you don't read like I read. So why do I care? Because I care. I don't ever want to be in front of somebody and either not know or set myself up to fail. I want to make sure that I've done everything I can do to succeed. And if I fail, that's on me, right? If I didn't know something, that's on me. But I'm not going to leave that window of opportunity open for me to fail. Like, we failed enough in life. It's part of life. Last topic of the day. Someone had something to say about Jared Goff. What's going on here?
Oh, yeah. So this one, I wrote a little something, and this one gets me because this is about my favorite Detroit Lions player, and not just him, about the team. Okay. So there's a local 97.1 sports radio host questions if Lions fans have turned on Jared Goff.
Ooh.
So I don't believe in calling out this local radio personality for his recent comments about the popularity of Jared Goff, but after seeing his story, I feel I have to speak up for my favorite Detroit Lions player, Mr. Jared Goff, number 16 of my beloved Detroit Lions. For 2 seasons now, chants of Jared Goff have run rampant in Detroit at every sporting events, from Red Wings games, Pistons, and even Tigers games. Even places like grocery stores, shopping malls, and Little League baseball games have had chants break out all over Michigan. I was at a Meyer grocery store shopping in a Jared Goff jersey and had a Jared Goff chant break out up here in the UP of Michigan. It's everywhere, and I can understand why some people have tired of the chants. But to me, it's a badge of honor. If you truly understand why longtime fans chant his name, it may help some to understand why. To begin, Jared Goff helped the Detroit Lions during a complete and utter rebuild from the depths of 3-13-1 to 12-5 and our first playoff win in over 30 years. The 2023 season run at the end of the season and the first playoff win cemented Goff as a legend here in Detroit. After having Stafford for 12 seasons, Goff did something in his third season that Stafford never did in 12. He won a playoff game. And not only one playoff game, but 2 playoff games. And that day, during the first playoff game, for 4 hours before the playoff game versus the Rams in Stafford, Jared Goff chants rained throughout Ford Field and all around Detroit. Heck, the chants in my hotel a few blocks away lasted all the way to the stadium and back from the stadium after the game. Then the next week, he did it again, and fans exploded with chants all over again. Then when the Detroit Lions made the NFC Championship game and started out with a 24-7 lead, chants of Jared Goff filled Levi's Stadium to a stunned crowd of 85,000 people. Now fast forward to the 24 season, and Jared Goff had a top 5 MVP caliber season with 15 wins and broke more records in a single season than any other QB in Lions history. So I get that people are disappointed in the Lions losing after having the number 1 seed and home field advantage to a number 6 road team with a rookie QB. I wanted the Commanders. Heck, we all did. But just because we lost that one game, yes, one game, will not make me lose faith in my quarterback, number 16, Jared Goff. Jared Goff. Jared Goff. So to the radio personality, he's not losing my faith, and I can guarantee you there will be Jared Goff chants all over the state of Michigan again next season.
Let's just call the dude out. It's Jeff Rieger.
Yep.
So
I'm going to be nice and not do it, though.
Honestly, I don't listen to Jeff Rieger. I barely listen to 97.1 The Ticket ever. I swear to goodness, it has always seems like SOL fan takes to me. And there's some in the morning, the early morning show. I can't remember the dude's name on the early morning show. He's a former U of M football player. Yep. What is his name again?
It's the one with Stoney.
No, it's not Stoney.
No, with him.
It's not, I don't even think it's with him.
No.
Well, anyway, moving forward. Yeah. I think it's this simple to me. When I read this quote, I don't know if you already shared this quote because I was looking at something else.
No, I didn't share anything from his little article because there is an article that goes with this.
Yeah, let me read this quote real quick because this is what I have a problem with. It's, quote, the one thing I keep getting back from Lions fans, and it's not every Lions fan, but it is actually a decent amount of them, is the quarterback. You know what's changed over the last 5 weeks, 6 weeks, 2 months? Question. I don't think I'm wrong about this. Detroit Lions fans are not as confident in Jared Goff as they once were. End quote. Okay. Let me just go section by section. The one thing I keep getting back from Lions fans. All right, how did you get it back from Lions fans? Did they text you? Did they email you? Did they call you? And then he goes to say, it's not every Lions fan. Well, no crap.
Mm-hmm.
There's millions of them. And he said, but it's actually a decent amount of them. Okay, how many emails, texts, and phone calls did you get? 5, 6, 20? Or did you get 1,000? Because unless you got more than 1,000, it's definitely not a decent amount. Did you just read a bunch of crap online? But he says what's changed is that he thinks that Lions fans are not as confident in Jared Goff. Here's what I'm going to say about the game, because he says, against the Commanders, it was one of the signal caller's worst performances. No, it wasn't. There's a lot that went on in this game, and I think that we've talked about it up and down and sideways, left and right, you name it. We flipped it up, spanked it on its ass, and sent it on its way. This game had so much wrong with it, it's not even funny. From the defense, yes, to the offense, from Jared Goff to Dan Campbell, to everybody. This is the same thing that happened in the NFC Championship game.
Yep.
They were prepared to get to the game, but you cannot tell me that you're going to blame Jared Goff when he put up the amount of points that they put up.
Yeah, 31 points.
And the defense couldn't get a stop. If you put up 31 points, you should be able to win a frickin' football game. And they didn't because the defense couldn't stop a bloody nose.
And they put up 31 in both of those games, the NFC Championship game and the divisional game.
And this is not an indictment on the edge rushers or the pass rush. No, it's an indictment on injuries. They happen. And when Amik went down, the game was over. There was no way we were going to be able to shut down what they were doing. And beyond that, Aaron Glenn, I'm sorry, he screwed up. And I know I'm right about this because what happened with Philadelphia against the Commanders worked, and they did the same thing against the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl, and it worked. The only reason why Kansas City put up 22 points is because, like I said prior to that game, the end score is not going to reflect what happens in this game for Philly. Now, I didn't expect Philly to put up a 40-burger, but I expected them to win, and I expected it to be lopsided. I said it before the game that was going to happen. It happened. But I did not expect that the Eagles were going to do exactly what needed to get done versus the Commanders that the Lions didn't do. I thought for sure Aaron Glenn was looking at the patterns and the statistics, and he wasn't going to try to do the same thing that we did against Minnesota, because if you do, you just gave him the blueprint. You can't do that, and you can't do it when you don't have the ball players on that side of the football. We didn't. Everyone was hurt. Even if you're healthy, that's still the wrong defense. Sometimes, and don't take this the wrong way, sticking to your identity matters when it comes to the culture and the identity of the team. But sticking to an identity of a defense, I don't know that you really can have an identity other than we're prepared. We're going to play, complementary football, and we're going to do what works, not stick to an identity of we're going to try to manufacture all of this pressure. So when you try to manufacture all of this pressure, it worked against them. You try to blitz, it worked against you. Using a heavy pass rush hurt us because we didn't have a proper defense on the backside to contain the rest of the outlets. But then again, it was still the wrong style of defense. We've seen it. The Eagles were able to adapt, and they clearly read the stats and the patterns where it said, hey, if you rush Jaden Daniels, he's going to pick you apart or he's going to run on you. And they have the team to do it. Well, we're not going to do that for a third time this season. Right? They beat them in the first match. They lost in the second match when Jalen Hurts went out. In the third match, they did what needed to be done. And then in the Super Bowl, they did the same thing. They did what needed to be done. And it's exactly why they won the football game. So I'm not going to put this entire game on Jared Goff. Did the interceptions and the turnovers hurt? Absolutely. But you still put up 31 points. All you needed was a couple of stops.
Yeah. Did Goff call for a empty back set and did he call for a pass on 3rd and 1 from their own 17?
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? Here's a great statement by Full Slate Farms. And I can't remember what everybody says in the chat, your support or lack thereof of Goff or whatever, but he says Goff probably, felt the pressure of having to do everything because he had no defense. So thought he had to win the game by himself. I think I think it's a great statement because I felt like the same thing. I felt like Goff obviously had the weight of the world on his shoulders. And especially when the defense wasn't coming up with a bunch of stops, he knew that every opportunity he had to try to make a play. And sometimes when you force the football and you've got the wrong plays called, which is not his fault, those plays turned into interceptions. But yeah, to your point, Eric, it's 3rd and 1 on the 17 and you're calling a freaking pass. You've got the best running back tandem in the postseason and you're not running the football. We could talk about it till I'm blue in the face.
Mm-hmm.
This is a total team letdown because Dan Campbell let it get that way. At some point, and I love Dan to death, man. I think that he's perfect for Detroit. I think he's perfect for this team. At some point as a head coach, you're going to have to just stand up and say, what are you guys doing? Like, come on. Like, what do we do? It's not working. We've got to do something different. And at halftime, I wouldn't even have spoken to the team. I would have grabbed my coordinators. I would have walked into an office and I would have said, what in the hell did you just do? How do you fix it? Guess this is Hot Take Friday. God.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't get amplified often. I try to be a little bit more reserved. You know, as I'm getting older, I'm learning more about emotional intelligence. But there is just at some point, things just kind of get to you. And I get sick of the Jared Goff hate. Look, I'll be honest. Am I concerned about Jared Goff in 25? No, I'm not. Without a doubt, I think that he's still the best quarterback that we could have on this team. Go name me another free agent quarterback that is available and better than Goff right now. Who? Sam Darnold? Aaron Rodgers? Want Aaron to quarterback for us? Hell no. Eric could probably turn in his fan card.
Yeah, I wouldn't be purchasing my season tickets this year. I'll pass.
Oh, that would be Jack 2125, dude. That would be incredible to be able to hear what was in the headsets during that game. I would pay for that, but we'll never be able to hear it.
Yeah.
So I mean, you got bad play calling, poor execution, a huge amount of injuries. I will die on this hill by myself if I have to. If we are healthy in that game, we are winning that game.
Yeah.
But we're not winning that game even with that same defensive play calling. We're not.
Did you know that the Philadelphia Eagles in the Super Bowl at the end of the season had one defensive lineman, on injured reserve for the whole entire season?
Yeah.
And it was a guy that played 0 snaps for them in the regular season.
Yeah. I mean, they're healthy. Buffalo Bills, same thing, right?
Yep.
Big shout out to Adam. Adam sent another $20 gift on Cash App. Appreciate the donation, man. Really appreciate you big time. Look, this is it's old, right? I'm trying to move forward.
Yeah.
I'm trying to look at 2025, but I'll put it to you this way. The Philadelphia Eagles put up 24 points to Kansas City Chiefs 0 in the first half. That won the football game. That won the football game with a pick six and an interception. There was, one sack in the first half. That's what won the football game. They held the Chiefs to 22 points, just 2 points over my threshold. But when you think about it, those points were scored because the Philadelphia Eagles allowed them to do that. I mean, that was stat pad time, right? That's all it was. If you score 31 points, okay, let me do this. Eric, do you have anything more you want to add to this? I'm going to pull something up real quick.
Just if anyone listening to this happens to see this particular individual that wrote this story out on the street or at 97.1, please give him a Jared Goff chant from me. I've never seen him in person. I hope Jared Goff chants break out everywhere.
You know, we should put something together and send it to him.
Oh,
send it to the station, and so like it opens up a box or something, and it goes Jared Goff, Jared Goff. Send him a Jared Goff bobblehead.
Yeah, we should get a bunch of people out in front and get a big Jared Goff chant going as he goes into work one day.
All right, so let me run through this. Now, I haven't looked at this before, right? I can't remember all these scores, but how many times, did a team win putting up 31 points or more in the postseason? I don't even know how many times any of these teams put up 31 points in the postseason this year, but we'll just start with AFC. Broncos and Bills. Bills put up 31 exactly. Broncos 7. They won the game. The next game, the Bills put up 27. The Ravens 25. They won the game. The first game for the Ravens, they put up 28. Steelers put up 14. They won the game. The Texans in the first game, they put up 32. They won the game to the Chargers 12. Moving down to the NFC, the Eagles put up 22-10 over the Packers. The Rams put up 27-9 over the Vikings. The Commanders put up 23-20 over the Bucks. That was the closest game, was the Commanders and the Bucks. And, I mean, you could even say the Eagles and the Packers was a fairly close game, and it was until the end. Okay, how about the divisional round for the Eagles? They put up 28-22, fairly close game again. But then the Lions put up 45-31. We are the only team so far that has put up more than 23 points to not win a football game.
Wow.
Chiefs put up 23-14 on the Texans. Chiefs put up 32-29 on the Bills. We are the only team. The only team in this year's playoff rounds leading to the Super Bowl that put up more than 23 points and didn't win a football game in the postseason. I think that should tell you everything you need to know. They scored enough points. The defense had to show up. It's that simple. And it's not the defense didn't show up because of a pass rush. That's such a lame excuse. It's because everybody was hurt. Yeah, if we had the defensive line of the Philadelphia Eagles, headed into the postseason that was healthy, hell yeah, we probably would have played better. I'm not saying it wasn't needed. I'm not saying it's not needed throughout the season. It's just we didn't have it. Everyone was hurt. So, got to move off this Jared Goff stuff. He's not going anywhere.
Nah. His contract starts this year?
No, I think it's still pretty low this year.
No, but I mean, this is the first year of his new contract, right?
I believe so, yes, because last year would have been his last year on the contract. But this year, his cap hit is at $27 million.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm sorry. Last year's his cap hit was $27 million. In 2025, it's at $32 million. And next year, 2026 is when it gets big, $70 million.
Time for a restructure.
Well, yeah, I'm sure that they'll do a restructure, but let's walk on this for just a moment, and then I gotta go get an injection. When we look at what is happening this year, so we'll call it $25 million being added to the cap. So Jared Goff's contract in 25 is going from 32 to 70 million. Okay, 32 to 70 million. That's $38 million difference. Well, you're injecting 25 million into the cap this year. And you're probably going to inject another 28 million next year. So by the time his big cap number hits, the Lions are still going to be about 15 million ahead of the curve. So when you look at how the cap is helping his contract and there's not going to be another contract in the NFL for these quarterbacks that's lower than 60 million pretty soon.
Yep. That's where it's headed.
Yeah. I mean, Aaron Rodgers had a cap hit of $100 million last year before the Jets renegotiated his contract. $100 million in one season. How could any team afford to pay out 45% of a cap to one player? Doesn't make any sense. I don't even know how they put that together. You can actually look at contracts and how they're worked to figure out when these players are going to get moved, potentially. Trace, can you post it in the chat?
Here, we'll go look at this. See what our breaking news is here.
Oh, yeah, he won't be traded. Myles Garrett. Daniel Jeremiah says the expectation is Myles Garrett won't be traded.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've been saying that from day one. I just don't. I don't see it.
No.
They're going to do everything they can to retain him. It's doubtful that Garrett's going to rework his deal. I mean, he already has a deal in place. He wants more money. I mean, I think that's part of it. Of course he's going to want more money, but he wants to play for a contender. But anyway, final thoughts on the day.
Jared Goff's my quarterback, and stop talking crap about him. That's all I'm saying. He's going to be just fine. The chance of Jared Goff aren't going anywhere. He did more for this city in 3 years than Stafford did in 12. I'm sorry. Yes, he had a better team around him, but Jared Goff's my QB now. I cheer for the guys that are on my team, not for guys that used to play on my team.
I want to try to find something real quick. Hopefully it's quick. Looks like we're getting a lot of action on that video now, so I got a lot of comments coming in. On the Aiden tampering thing, that these idiots,
okay.
There's a lot of comment. I'm trying to find a comment that someone put in because they broke down, and again, I haven't verified what they put in there, but they kind of broke down what the average NFL team does. And I'll have to find it. I'm not finding it fast enough. But it was something about the average NFL team and what they do, like over the last, 30 years or whatever it is, and talked about winning Super Bowls and making NFC championships and winning one or playoffs, and kind of compared what the Lions have done, the last 4 years compared to what the Lions had done the previous 30. And why this team is headed in the right direction, and how you've got to give Brad Holmes all the credit in the world. Don't just change everything you've been doing because you're coming up against a roadblock. You know what I mean? You just find another way to get around it. You just keep doing what you're doing. You're either going to go through it, over it, or around it. One way or the other, Brad's going to get through it. He's going to be knocking down the walls here soon, and we will be having a Lombardi Fest in Detroit that'll probably last for a week. So my final thoughts of the week are simple. If you hate what the Lions are doing so much that you have to talk crap about them and their GM or their quarterback, and you call yourself a fan, find a new team. We don't want you. I'm sorry. You can have your opinions, you can have your thoughts, but it seems like there's a line that has been drawn in the sand. If you say, look, I think that Jared Goff is a good quarterback. He could have done better. He failed in this area, but I still think he can lead us to the promised land. Or what? It's a great take, right? But if you say Jared Goff sucks, he's not the right quarterback for this team because he's not mobile, well, back it up by bringing in some proof, some stats. Go find some comparatives. And I hate seeing these baseless arguments or baseless comments that are not supported by facts, or they're not supported by statistics, or they're not supported by anything but an opinion. I'll give you opinions till I'm blue in the face, but they don't mean squat if I don't have a clue as to what I'm talking about. I love to have intelligent conversations about anything, but do yourself a favor. If you want to drive some comments, and if you want to drive a narrative, back it up. Please back it up so that we can actually have a real conversation about it. I like that Mueller's comment in here, the Tom Brady wasn't mobile. I've made so many comparisons with that because Tom Brady averaged 29 yards of rushing a season, not a game, a season. And he didn't have the best of the best around him, but Jared Goff is in that same boat. He's a pocket quarterback. That's just what he is. And if you look at, all the other quarterbacks around the league, they don't want to be called this dual threat. They want to be they are a pocket quarterback. They just happen to have some wheels. They happen to be a little bit more mobile. Jared Goff has won plenty of games in his life. You can't say that he can't get us to the promised land. He's already been in a Super Bowl. But again, you can't blame him for the loss solely. You can't. You just can't. I don't know how we get off on these things, but all right, we'll see you guys next week, Monday. We will jump in. I'm going to see if we can get the Legacy Bowl on tomorrow and watch some of these guys. So we'll be in that. And then when does UFL start? When's the first game?
The 29th or 30th of March. I think the 30th. And single game tickets go on sale on the 27th of February. And they sent me an email. I can get in 2 days early on the 25th if I want to get single game tickets. I'm thinking about going to April 4th, the home opener. They have a 3-week stretch of games for the Panthers there. And I think I'm going to go to the home opener for the Panthers. It's week 2 of the season.
Yeah, so Full Slate Farms, I usually go to the Combine every year, or have over the last couple of years. I was planning on going next week, at least to Thursday. But due to my injections and things that I have to get that I cannot do without, we'll see. We'll see how it pans out for me. I'm probably gonna feel like crap, but I cannot miss opening day Combine. I gotta be there. Have to be there. So if anyone's going and they want to come sit together, just let us know. Just send us an email. We'll figure it out. It's all free. Go to your NFL One Pass and sign up. So we'll see you down there. If you want to go, just let us know. We'll meet you up there. All right, guys. Take care. Go Detroitlions. We'll see you next Monday with more hot takes, probably. Who knows? See you guys.
Detroit Lions will